welcome to another episode of Questionable Personalities. The name always makes everyone laugh because we didn't know what to call it. So we're like, we ask questions. I guess we're questioning. And then I'm like, well, the guests might think the question.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. So that's what we got.
It's a good title.
And tonight we're hanging out with Susan Skoog, a filmmaker, director, writer, mom, teacher, the owner of guinea pigs and dogs. And a million things.
Yes, a lot of fun things, yeah.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us tonight.
Sure.
Yeah. And so you're a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you would call yourself, I guess. First, right? What would be first?
Yeah, filmmaker, I would say. But being a filmmaker encompasses
a lot of stuff.
Writing, directing, producing. You know, there's a whole range of activities involved in getting a film done. So that begins with writing. So,
especially if you do independent stuff, you do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, you do. When you're working independently, you have to find the money, find the people, find locations, do it all kind of yourself to get it off the ground.
How did you get started? Like, how old were you when you first thought of, I'm just gonna make a film?
Well, I went to drama school at NYU, and I wanted for acting in theater, and while I was there, I started directing plays and realized that was kind of more my interest. Like, I was better at that, and I liked acting, but it wasn't really I don't know. And then now I look back and I'm like, well, for a lot of young people, I think acting and theater is like the gateway drug to all things dramatic, you know, be it filmmaking or theater, you know, or television or whatever. So anyway, so I started directing plays. And then when I got out of school, I realized I wanted to work in film, and I got a job, as a assistant at a production management company, and they produced they represent, it was a production management company, so they managed comedians and musicians and singer-songwriters, and so I got a job as an assistant, and because they were about to make a pilot for HBO, and so through that process, I learned about production and was like, oh, this is what I want to do. And then the woman that produced that HBO pilot went on to VH1, and then she brought me over, and then I started producing music shows, music documentaries, and film shows, and I worked at VH1 for many, many years. And then all the while, like, oh, I want to make movies, and this is what I realized I wanted to do. So, and eventually moved to Los Angeles and started getting my own films going.
So did you do any theater in high school?
I did theater in high school, yeah.
So that was start, and then in college you made that switch.
Yeah, so in college I went to college for I was a drama major in college, which was an undergraduate drama at NYU, and then while I was there I just started directing because that was kind of more my interest and ability, I think. So
what was the first film project? Was it a short?
So the first film I did was I wanted to learn film, so I took a class at the New School. I think it was the New School. It was the New School in it must have been the late 80s. And so I had a Super 8 camera, and I made a Super 8 short, you know, up at upstate New York with John, my husband. It's not my husband at the time, and my friends, and it was like this little horror movie, and then I cut it on one of those little, you know, those little flatbeds, the little viewers where you're taping, you know, the Super 8, you know, and I was so excited, and then so I made that, and then I sent it, and I got into all these film festivals, and I was like, oh my God, wow, this worked, and people liked it. So so that was my first film.
So you went from directing plays, short film, and then you got that job that you worked your way up?
Yeah. So when I was at VH1, I came in as a PA, but then at the time at VH1 and MTV, it was the like late 80s, early 90s when it was sort of just beginning, and it was like, you know, if you had a heartbeat and half a brain, they said, here, go produce a show. And so, you know, they would throw shows at anybody who was, you know, hungry to learn and do stuff, which was great. I mean, they paid you hardly anything, but you got great experience. So I was like, you know, within like 4 months, I was like associate producer. And then within a year, I was producing my own shows. You know, it was just like, you moved up really fast because there was so much content and shows and things that needed to be produced. So, and it was like creative producing. So it's like writing, directing, and editing, you know, and it was like, and then while I was there, so I produced a lot of music documentaries, and then they had a film show. And what I really loved was movies. So they had a film show. So I became one of the producers on a weekly film show. So that was kind of cool. And then I did all these specials and things like that. So it was like conceiving of a show, writing it, shooting it, cutting it, you know, rewriting it, shooting stand-ups and, you know, all that stuff. So
what made you move to LA?
Well, I wanted to make script narrative movies, you know, and most of the work that I was doing, this was in New York at the time, and most of the work I was doing, it was all like nonfiction. So it was like documentary magazine style. So it was like, you know, documentaries on like rock stars, which was exciting. It was like, you know, but it was like, that's not what I wanted, but it was cool. You know, I did shows on like Dolly Parton, and I got to interview Dolly Parton and Whitney Houston, and I did like Crosby, Stills and Nash, and like Katie Lang, and I'll say Bonnie Raitt, and a lot of really cool, interesting you know, music artists that were great, but I just really wanted to make movies. So when I moved to LA,
what year was that?
92, I think 92.
92.
Yeah, I think 92. I moved to LA. And so I freelanced. So then I worked for Turner Classic Movies and Turner Network Television, producing shows for them that were more movie oriented, you know, film centric kind of programming that was not like similar kind of work, but not rock stars. They were, you know, films. So like Turner Classic Movies was fairly new. And so they would so while I lived in LA, like I would go out and shoot interviews with a lot of aging film stars, you know, so like I would do, you know, we do like John Wayne weekends. So I would like go interview.
Was he alive? He wasn't alive.
No. But I would like go shoot, like his sons were alive. So I would go shoot his sons at like the ranch up on Beechwood Canyon, and they talk about their dad. And then I would do one time I did like a tribute. They were doing a tribute weekend to like Edward G. Robinson. So I would went to Charlton Heston's house and like talked to Charlton Heston about Edward G. Robinson, stuff like that, you know.
She pulled Michael Moore.
What? Yeah, it was very Zelig. It was very weird. But then, so I did that as a freelance gig while I was like, okay, I want to make movies, and I was trying to figure out if I should go to film school or not. And I just kind of kept working, and I would do shows for Turner, the various Turner outlets, because I worked for a bunch of them, and I was freelancing and writing, and then writing scripts, and eventually made my short film, and then that did well and went to film festivals, and then I wrote the feature film that became wrote whatever. Which was my,
right. And that was film. In late 90s, right?
Yeah. So then we shot that in 1997, and then we went to Sundance in 1998, and then it came out that summer. 1998.
And that was for Sony Pictures Classics?
Sony Classics bought it. Yeah, and distributed it worldwide. So
that was right after the wave of those independent films, and all the studios created their little tiny...
Yeah, they all had their specialty units. So there was like Fox Searchlight and Sony Classics and Focus Features, and they all the distributors had their little classy unit. They had their little indie films. Yeah.
So and that was a fairly low budget. I mean.
I had been producing these big shows for Turner, and so I was saving up money trying to get this film made. So I would like do a show, bank the money, and then at one point I was like, well, I had all this money. It wasn't that much. It was like $70,000, which is a lot.
Decent chunk.
I was like, should I buy a house, go to film school, or use it to make my movie? And then I thought, well, I'll just make the movie. So I collected a bunch of credit cards, and so we started shooting it with the money that I had in cash, like the savings.
So you didn't go for the financing.
No, I was just because I didn't know how to do that. Like I didn't know how to do that. So I just said, all right, I'm just gonna get going. I'm just gonna make it for what I have. So I figured I had enough to get going, to get started. And then I got credit cards. So everybody at that time was like putting money on their credit cards.
So everyone did back then.
Right, everybody did that. So I just started charging, and used the cash. And then I figured if I got it shot, then you can go get finishing funds, which is, money to finish. So the hardest part is getting it shot. I figured if you had footage, we could cut it and I could edit. I was an avid editor also at the time. So
that was the first generation of avid, right? First and second?
No, it was, well, I don't know.
97?
Yeah. I mean, I was editing when I was doing my freelance work, my money gigs, I was editing my own works, which was great because then I could make more money. So I was like, well, worst case scenario, I can edit it myself, and figured I could get it.
So what was the budget?
We ended up so it was $80,000 in cash. We had about 40 in investment and credit cards. So it was about 120, I think, that we used to get it shot with. And then
you shot in 16?
We shot Super 16.
Super 16.
Super 16.
Okay. So it's that little tiny bit
that
more.
Little bit more. Yes,
negative.
It was a wee bit more space in the frame. Yeah.
It's because that was pretty standard for independent films.
That was, yeah. That was, yeah. So it's funny to talk to my students now about like, it's not over until you cut negative. And like, they don't know.
There's no negative.
They don't know what that is anymore,
You rarely find someone who may be taking a photography.
Well, that was like such a crazy thing, like going through that whole post-production with real film. And I was from television, which was just all tape. I mean, everything was tape. And I mean, we would shoot on film, but then a lot of, I would shoot interviews and work stuff on film and then transfer it from film to tape or telecine. And then it would all finish on tape. Like these were the days of D2.
Well, so it would be too expensive to cut.
Yeah, so nobody cut, but we never went back to print, But we had to get the negative cut, which was just a whole weird experience dealing with the negative cutter because there was like these old timey guys that do art with their gloves and they're so persnickety and like we were so afraid of the guy. He's really intense and we were always doing it wrong and bringing him the wrong thing.
There was a few negative cutters in that building at that time.
And they were all a little intense.
But who else would do that? It fits the personality.
Yeah, I mean, it's an intense thing to do, and it's precision. Like they had to, and it was,
There's no
and getting optics, like you dissolve. Like in television, it was like dissolve. Like you push a button, it's like nothing. In film, it's like a freaking expensive nightmare. To like go get those optics made, like. It was like, forget the dissolve, it's too expensive, just a different way of thinking. And titles, all of that. It was just a totally different world back then.
So how long did it take you to shoot it?
We shot in 27 days.
That's a pretty decent amount of time, actually.
But we shot, I think it was 27 days total. We did like 3 weeks in West Virginia. We shot all, and then we did like 4 or 5 days in New York and New Jersey. For like the New York scenes and some other thing like beach stuff. Like
why did you go to
because so Kevin Smith, you know who he is?
Sure.
So Kevin Smith had made Clerks and he was like big deal. And he's from where I grew up in New Jersey and where my parents lived. And so I had set it in and around that area of New Jersey. But it really is like a suburban story. It didn't really matter what state it was. But anyway, I thought, well, I have resources and family to help me down there. So we went, the producer and I went down there, down by the shore in that area to just figured, people let us shoot for free. And, it's like, indie low budget movie. And everyone was like, Kevin Smith ruined it for everybody because everybody was like, well, you got to pay me. Like everybody wanted money to shoot.
They just assumed
right.
you
They
make
assumed
money.
you had money. Like nobody really knew what that was until Kevin Smith made his Clerks and other films. And, but anyway, so it turns out it was like nobody was willing to let us shoot for free and use locations or like putting people up and putting crew up or actors up in motels. Like nobody was giving us a deal. They were like gouging us. So one of the producers that grew up in Wheeling, West Virginia, and she said, Wheeling, West Virginia would be thrilled to have an independent
movie. Because
no one's ever shot a movie there, and they would be thrilled, and they would let you get everything for free. So we were like, okay. So we went and looked at it. It looks exactly like New Jersey. You couldn't tell the difference. It's just like, it looks like it's just a suburb. It just looks like any suburb. So,
actually, probably looks more like New Jersey.
Yeah,
in the 80s, right?
Yeah, in the 80s. Yeah, actually, yeah. So, so we shot, so we went and looked at it, and it looked great, and the whole town was like, whatever you need, any house you want, of course, and people put up our cast and crew in houses, and we're just thrilled. So we stayed in people's houses, and like we didn't have to pay for any of that stuff, which is great, because we didn't have any money. So...
Well, also probably saved you on transportation if everyone was local and you have to...
Yeah, so we hired some crew out of Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh was like an hour away, and then we brought, most of the crew came from New York. So we did have to like bring them, and most of them either drove or I think some of the actors flew to Pittsburgh. I think some of them flew, but yeah. So we pretty much brought everybody in, like a couple people from Pittsburgh, but not many.
But since everyone stayed in town, you didn't have to.
So no, we were all there, and and then there's like local people who were really interested in movies and would drive us around, it was great. It was really, and they were really welcoming and excited, and it was great. And it was like, no one ever knew. It didn't look like New Jersey. I mean, that it wasn't New Jersey, so.
So would you shoot 6 days a week, or did you go?
Yeah, we did 6 days. Yeah, we did 6 days and then had 1 day off. And then we took like 3 days off to come to do the company move back to New York to do the last few days in New York and New Jersey. Because we have a scene like in Sandy Hook, like at the beach, so we did that.
Yeah, you can't fake that one.
Yeah, you can't fake. They don't have a beach in West Virginia. It's landlocked. So, yeah.
And so you finish it and then look for finishing.
No, so what we did, when we finished shooting, I had an editor that I had hired to do a Turner show that I had done, and we had become good friends, and she loved it and wanted to be the editor, so it was like great. So she cut together like 4 or 5 scenes, and our DP at the time, we had 2 DPs. One of our DPs, the first DP left. He had a family emergency, so he had to leave halfway through. But he felt so guilty that he left, so that he had done some work with a company out of DC called Circle Films, who had produced the first 4 of the Coen Brothers films, and they were involved with Irwin Young at Duart in Circle Releasing, which was one of the early distributors for foreign films in the United States in like the 60s and 70s. So they were like real estate investors who loved film and loved foreign film, and so they used their money to make this Circle Releasing, and they made the first few Coen Brothers films. So anyway, so my DP knew them, and so he called them and said, hey, I was just working on this film. You should take a look. I think it's really special, and you guys should look at it. So when we finished shooting, they said, okay, well, we'll look at some scenes, and we were like, oh, okay. So we cut the scenes together, and we went down to DC and showed it to them, and they really liked it. And so then they came in with the finishing funds.
Nice. So
then they became executive producers, and then they helped us sell it to Sony, because they had a relationship with Sony with other films that they had done, and they were pretty well respected, very classy, old, well respected, people in the indie film world. So people knew them, and it was great. Like once they came in, it was like, oh, great.
It was easy.
Well, it wasn't easy, but it was pretty smoother sailing. Like
So if you had to do it again, would you spend your money again, or did you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good if you don't have to spend your own money, but sometimes you have to. I mean, I don't know.
Well, it's probably cheaper depending on. I mean, you can do it for cheaper if you had to.
Nowadays you can. I mean, I think nowadays you can, but even, nowadays with digital, like it's still like there's still costs that are hard cost, like you have to, and most of it's people, it's like paying.
But if you keep it small, you can get away with.
But sometimes you can't keep it like it's weird. Like I've made a lot of short films the last few years, and one of the things that I think is really important is acting and working with actors that are professional and at a certain level. And you can't like if you're going to bring in like actors who are used to working on bigger things, they're thrilled to work on something that's like has more meaning to them, and that's great, and they'll work much cheaper. But then you have to have a makeup person, and then you have to find a space for them to be when they're not shooting, and you have to like you have to take care of their kids, and you get a babysitter for their kid, and
only work with childless people.
Yeah, no, I know. And then you gotta, you need the support staff.
And you still need it, but you don't have to spend money on the film developing negatives.
No, but I don't know.
The like, cost is still the same.
Yeah, but I feel like, but it's as much as it's cheaper because digital's cheaper. You still have to rent the light. You don't need as many light. Like you don't need as much. You need less, but it still doesn't feel any cheaper. I don't know why. It doesn't feel. Well, you can
always make it more expensive.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like let's just go shoot it. It's still. I don't know. There's still like an apparatus. Older and more
jaded, or because,
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I mean, I know I have students that they go run and shoot, and it's all they shoot. Without, running gun in a way that, I don't know, I like to plan things out. I like to do my home, I like to.
But the movie that cost you, what, 180, is it? 120? I'm sorry.
Well, it was 120 in cash and credit card.
Right. But you probably do that for 60 or 80 today.
Maybe, yeah. I don't know.
It's not cheap, but.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
But it's also so expandable. Like you can make something for anything.
Well, that same movie could have cost you $4 million.
Yeah, it could have cost, or it could have cost. I mean, you could make something for 10 or 4, depending on 2 or nothing. If you're just depending on what resources.
And what is it like? What's your budget? Well, how much money do you have?
Exactly. So, then you got to pay people, and then you got to pay actors and SAG and. I mean, it's not. You gotta pay people. You gotta pay crew.
Yeah. So when you you enjoy working with actors, obviously.
Yeah.
But did that start in the theater? Is that when you first discovered? The
stage?
Yeah.
I really loved working with actors. That was my recreating drama, shaping drama, getting those dramatic beats and molding them and to create and a certain effect or make, connect with an audience. I found that to be the painting, creating that was more my interest. Than acting, but I love working with actors and I love shaping drama.
So how did you find the difference between a stage and film?
Well, film is always the addition of camera. So so I think because I started in theater, my go-to thing is the drama, the actors, what's happening there, and then how do I photograph it. Some directors come at it they see the visuals first, and I always come at it from story and the performances, and then how can I capture those so that they cut together to create the effect that I'm looking for.
So do you rehearse and then decide how you're going to cover it, or do you come to?
Well, I think so. I do both. It depends. Sometimes I've worked with actors where they come at different, this last thing I did, I worked with an actress who's she's a theater, she does both. She's done, lots of theater, but she gets warmed up, and she would be better, much later on, because she's just a theater person, and she, and then some actors, the first couple film actors, they're better the first couple, takes, so you have to balance. So once you start shooting, you kind of figure out their rhythms and how they work. And okay, well, I'm going to cover. So then you think, okay, well, I'm going to cover the woman, the actress that she's best the first couple takes. I'm going to cover her first, or I'm not going to do the wide shot first because I really know that I need in this scene, I need that closer shot of her where she's really going to be great. She's going to give it the most organic performance that I'm looking for. So, and then as we do more takes, she doesn't, she wears, so you just have to adjust. So you have to adjust your thinking. So I think what I would do is like, I plan out what I think I need, and then you adjust. When you're on your,
you always adjust.
When you're shooting, you think, well, do I need, how to manage to get what you want given the circumstances on the ground, which is always different than what you think, So yeah, I'll plan everything out. You have to do all your homework. You have to plan all your coverage, all of the visuals, and then I work with the DP to like figure out, once we get the locations, figure out, how we can shoot it. And of course we're always going quickly, so it's always trying to figure out how to shoot it fast and get what you need.
So what would be your ideal rehearsal time if you had
I always try to do at least one like session where we're working, as you could call it a rehearsal or a read through, and then talk about character and talk about beats and just identify those important beats in the scenes so that everybody's on the same page as to like what's important, what needs to come out of the scene, what's the subtext, what's going on, so that we are all talking and know that we're all on the same page. And usually, if you by the time you cast your actors, then you cast them because they are on the same page, but you have to pay for, here's the thing, you have to pay for rehearsal time. So like if you want to rehearse with actors, you got to pay them for that day.
Well, if you're using union actors,
well, that's like yes, did, but right? But you got to pay. And if you're going low, it's like that's another like how many hundreds and thousands of dollars that you got to pay for that rehearsal. So sometimes, when you're on set, usually you always rehearse on, like you'll rehearse the scene with the actors, block it out, try some things, and then while the DP watches, and then once we get it, we block it, we get it set, then they light, and then the actors go into makeup, and then the DP lights, and and then I stress and think about like, is that really going to work? And then when the actors come back, and then we just start shooting, and we go in order of like however, and I always I try to always shoot like a wideish shot first, so that serves as some kind of a rehearsal, so that they get warmed up, and then we can make adjustments. And then so once that's and I do that a bunch of times, so and we just, because it is video, so you can shoot more. That's the thing, you can shoot more on video for not a lot more money. So I tend to do a bunch of masters and rehearse it a bunch and use those as rehearsals. So
that's true. That's a huge cost saving right there.
Yeah, so that does save money. Yeah. So,
since you brought up casting, what do you look for? Because obviously, with you also write your own material, right? You usually direct your own stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than most people.
Yeah, I've worked with a casting director, I don't know, for like 20 some years now, and she's amazing, and she really, she's very helpful in like thinking about the parts, and she's also someone who presents alternatives that I like. When you write something, you have an idea in your head of like, this person is like this, or you've created this character and they live in your imagination. And then when you start seeing actors, and nowadays like actors will self-tape, they'll just shoot on their phone, like the sides, and they send it so you can see more people rather than having these sessions where you used to have casting sessions where it was like days and days of people coming in, and
So you don't do those anymore?
I do, but usually but a lot of times what you do is you get a self-tape. People send us self-tape so you can narrow it down, so you can look at those. So if someone's not right, or they're not, you just move along and find the people that kind of are in the range. And then having a casting director really helps, because she can present alternative types of actors that you hadn't thought of, which is always, and I've done that. Like I've cast some people that it's like, oh, that's not what I had in my head. But then she's like, well, try it.
You saw them in your head visually, like
visually or type, or just had a tone or something about them or a quality that you think this person needs to have. And then an actor will walk in that has something totally different, but interesting and equally like, that can work. It's just different than what I thought of, but now it's different, and that's interesting too, and that creates another layer or another color to the character that I hadn't thought about, which is what the fun part of filmmaking is. That it is this collaborative stew where everybody's bringing something and it evolves into some new thing that you didn't really anticipate when you first started.
Did you ever write something that somebody else directed?
Not that got made, no. I mean, I did write for Hollywood for quite many years. Like I wrote scripts like for, assignment writing. I did a lot of that, but nothing ever got made.
Because I'm
thinking about it. Wait, I don't think so.
Just the reason I asked that question was like, I wonder if that's the reason why a lot of writers don't like the films made out of their writing, especially like Stephen King usually hates the movie. Not all of them, obviously. But because you probably have a idea visually what the character is, and then somebody else takes that and casts something completely different maybe, and that's never the same what was in your head.
I mean, film is a director's medium, so whoever chooses how the film is shot and the actors and cast it, like that's going to dictate what it becomes, and like television is a writer's medium, so like now like all the interesting people are working in TV. Yeah. All the interesting people are working in TV because totally they can, the writers, so I think that, I don't know, I always think like you're a filmmaker and you lean toward one area, like if you lean towards writing or you lean towards directing, but I don't know, I think that I think a lot of writers are working in television now where they can control the material more, and directors on television used to be like, they used to call them traffic cops because it was just, they're just moving the crew around, right? Like it's already set up, and the writers and the showrunners are the people who are controlling the creative aspects. They're doing the casting, they're doing a lot of making the creative decisions that a director would do in film. But a lot of writers now, to control the material, are writing series and getting them on, and TV directors are now, but they're also becoming more creative partners in the look and feel of a lot of shows, like The Watchmen. Did you just see that on HBO?
I don't watch anything. I'm so bad. I haven't watched TV in years, decades maybe.
Oh, geez, there's such good stuff.
I know. That's what people tell me.
Yeah. No, there's a show, like this is just an example. There's a show called The Watchmen, which is based on a graphic novel that was on HBO, and the showrunner is the guy who made Lost and all these other and The Leftovers, I think. And so when he was creating the show, he brought in a director, this woman who helped him shape and define the look. So that woman was like very involved in how visually the show was created and the vision of it. So it was a collaboration between them, which is sort of a newish thing now for directing in television. But I've never done that.
So just to wrap up the casting thing, is there anything specific that you look for that's outside just whatever you think somebody should look like? I mean, the type's a type, right? If somebody's 6 foot tall,
they have to be good. I mean, you just have to be good. I don't know. It's like, it when you see it, like if someone's good, they're good. And if they're not, like if you're engaged by them on camera or you're watching them, and like when I'm auditioning or even shooting, I don't usually look at monitors. I always look at the actor because I'm, old fashioned that way. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, am I engaged with them? Or is there something going on? A lot of times, if they do more takes, sometimes they're just phony, like they're not there, and they're, and if you're there and you're with them and you're compelled by them, then I think that's what it is, It's finding the right person who's good, I guess. you just kind of know it. It's weird. It's fun. It can be really tedious too, because you see a lot of people.
And it's probably horrible for actors.
Yeah, I mean, I try to listen. I know it's a hard process, so I do my best, like, to treat everybody well and talk to them and make them feel, and give them direction and and you work with them too, because you need to, like, talk to them about, give them some direction to see if they can listen to you, or if they can change and do something different. And if they can't, then that's not good either, because then they just come in with the one thing they prepared, and if they can't change, then that's not good either.
So that film got theatrical distribution, right?
Whatever. Yes.
Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a 80s kind of teen movie, right?
Yes,
so,
yes. Yeah.
I never saw the whole thing.
Oh, really?
Well, when they played in the city, that was the weekend I was away. When you had the
Oh,
20, was it 20 year
right.
anniversary?
It's on demand now. I can
I'll
send you.
I'll take a look.
I can give you. I'll give
but
you.
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I remember correctly, I should say, memory of a goldfish, like 3 second memory.
Right. Yeah.
It was sort of this 80s
Mm-hmm.
teen movie, but from a girl's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So
but from a girl's point of view? Wait,
well, it's usually there from the guy's point of view, right? Bill and Ted's, Goonies. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever
Anyway,
it
was a teenage experience, yes, through a girl's
Well, you wrote it,
perspective.
so it's obviously going to be from your point of view.
Well,
Or from a woman's point of view.
Yeah.
So what made you make a film like that?
I guess when I hadn't seen, I felt like a lot of the teen films were about boys and their experience.
See, and
it wasn't. No, there wasn't. I hadn't seen a believable or realistic depiction of what a female experience on screen. So I felt like there was a place for that.
Well, nothing in movies is realistic.
No, I'm not. It's believable. Like, what's believable? Like, a lot of it is like fake and dumb, and I just felt like there were a lot of issues flying around that weren't really being dealt with in cinema, and women's voices are pretty underrepresented, especially in that genre.
So when you went to theater, so you didn't go to film school.
No.
You went to theater.
No, I went to work.
Because I remember in film classes there were so few, ladies, to the point where I remember our professor walking down a hallway begging female students to sign up for the film class, because you just couldn't find. But now it's quite different. It's almost the opposite.
Yeah, there's a lot of. I mean, I teach in a film. I taught at Montclair State Film School for many, many years, and now I'm at another film school, and it's like half and half. But the problem is when they get out of school, that the men get the jobs, and men often get opportunities that women don't get. So it's a problem.
Right. Any of the noises that might be coming in are guinea pigs.
Yeah, guinea pigs. Guinea pigs.
So what did you do after?
After whatever. So I started. So I because I wrote and directed, I would go up for directing assignments. So like in Hollywood, there's a whole system of assignment writing where like a producer or studio or production company will option a book or an article, or they have a script that's in development that they're not happy with, and they're not working with the writer anymore, and they need to find a new writer, but they would need a writer. But then they would want a writer-director, because then the writer-director would come in, write the script, and then direct the project. So I got hired to do a lot of those kind of projects, and then inevitably something would happen, and it would, like, the executive would get fired, or it would go into turnaround, or or they would attach a new director, like, who was a bigger deal than me, and stuff like that. So I did that for many years, wrote and hoped to get stuff made, and just had a really hard time getting anything going. And I sustained myself and made a decent living and built a career, but it was a very frustrating process. So
would you, going back to the same thing, would you pay for your film again? Would you go about it the same way, or would you do something different?
I think I would. I think I didn't. really get it when I was going through my Hollywood years. I didn't really quite get it. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I had a lot of opportunity, and I think I didn't quite realize at the time how I could like, looking back, I'm like, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. But then, it's just, that's the thing, the decision you made at the time. I walked away from some things that I felt were just too, like, oh, I don't want to do that. Like, I got really close on a lot of big jobs, and I was just like, then it felt like, I don't want to deal with those people for 2 years. They're just, it's not, and maybe, and a lot of it, looking back, I think like, well, was it because I was a woman, or, and I think there's a lot of that I didn't realize at the time. A lot of it, the way Hollywood operates. Like, I was like, there weren't that many women like me doing what I was doing. There was hardly any, but I didn't think of myself as like a woman doing this. I was like, it's just me doing this. I'm just the same as
really
the men.
The only way to think about it. What difference?
Right. So I didn't attribute what was happening to me to the fact that I was female. I was just like, this is what's happening, and I'm trying to make a go of this and deal with some of the.
Well, you probably needed to be a bigger asshole.
I've often said that. I think I always think if I was a bigger dick,
you have to fit in.
I would have been much. If I wasn't if I was an asshole, I would have been much more successful.
There should be a class in film school, how to be an asshole.
Well, and I teach, and I found teaching, and I really love. It's been very fulfilling and fun, and it's just way more my speed than dealing with the assholes in Hollywood. But it's been very refreshing, and I tell my students, like, don't be a dick. Like, the key to success in the industry. It's like, don't be a dick.
But be an asshole.
Yeah, but I don't think that's the way to go.
Okay.
I think that I know. I mean, it's funny, but it's like,
It shouldn't be that.
The world is different now, and I think like Me Too has changed the industry, and it's different. It's different now. It's better for younger women now coming up. Much better.
That's right.